Hey, welcome back everybody. Happy Sunday evening. Hopefully we had a wonderful day out there. And again, hopefully we are getting ready because Debby is barreling towards the Big Bend to Florida and will bring catastrophic impacts from major flooding through the Carolinas to storm surge in Florida, a tornado threat, and these impacts could stretch all the way up the eastern seaboard potentially by the time all is said and done. And unfortunately, that might not be the only threat we need to track, as another area has been designated by the National Hurricane Center to monitor out in the Caribbean that could bring impacts on down the road potentially as well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, here to give you the latest update on everything we know about Debby and this next area to watch as hurricane season is in full swing here. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you like it, and comment, let me know where you're watching from, and consider sharing with somebody that might find some use in the video here. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and dive right into things because, again, things are active out here and with multiple areas to watch. Now, obviously, this area near Florida is Debby. That has been the big area that we've been watching over the past couple of days here. But that's not the only thing we need to watch out for here. Another area designated now by the National Hurricane Center as an area to watch crossing the Antilles currently, and that will eventually make its way into the Caribbean going into this coming week. And again, development could occur there, and we'll take a look at that as well. But again, all eyes currently on Debby as it makes its way towards Florida here. And that is going to be something that we're watching here. Again, still a tropical storm here at the latest National Hurricane Center advisory. But again, here's that another area to watch that could begin developing at any time and then really throughout all of this week as it gets into the Caribbean. But first off, we're going to start with Debby here, as again, that is bringing the most current impacts to the United States. And here it is on long wave infrared here. You'll notice just this big shrimp look to it as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida. Again, landfall likely only 12 to 16 hours away here tomorrow morning or early afternoon there in that part of Florida. But we've seen impacts all day from the entire West Coast. Fort Myers Beach, part of that area was underwater today with 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. Even up into Tampa Bay, we saw some flooding. So again, already a system that is causing problems. And something I want you to note here, look at satellite. See how we have kind of this area here that is showing up on satellite that is kind of got a little bit of some cloud cover in it, but it's kind of separating tropical weather from not so tropical weather. This is a leftover boundary or a stalled out front over portions of the Carolinas. And that combined with all of this moisture that's going to run into it from Debby, plus the fact she's going to stall out, again, catastrophic, life-threatening flooding is becoming more and more likely through portions of Georgia and South Carolina over the next week. And that is going to be the big story with Debby. In fact, we will see wind problems, we'll see storm surge problems, but already look at the rain beginning well out ahead of it, again, as that tropical air mass is interacting here with this leftover boundary. Already seeing some big problems here on radar, stalled out storms, and again, Debby is only going to exacerbate those problems as it already has done so over much of the Florida Peninsula this afternoon, and again, will continue to do so tomorrow with landfall into the Big Bend. But again, latest look at radar, a strengthening storm system, not necessarily rapidly currently, as again, we are dealing with a little bit of dry air here, and we talked about this in the past video or two. I said there would be some dry air on the western flank of the storm that would try to help us out a little bit. And sure enough, it is doing that somewhat. But again, the storm likely will still strengthen and very likely will be at least a Category 1 hurricane upon landfall again tomorrow morning. Potentially cannot rule out Category 2 status as we could see some more rapid intensification right up to landfall. And again, the big thing that's holding the storm back currently is this little bit of dry air here on the western side, again, trying to get funneled in into the storm system this evening. And the storm is spotted off somewhat here, but not completely. Now, we are seeing some more robust, deep convection and precipitation here around the center of the storm. That is going to help the latent heat release process and begin that positive feedback to strengthen the hurricane. But the question is, how rapidly will it occur? And right now, the latest from the NHC says that it will be rapid enough to, again, get this near Category 2 strength. Now, latest watches, warnings, and advisories, we're all covered up here through Florida, southern Georgia, and coastal South Carolina. Those dark red colors, tropical storm warnings, those brighter reds near the Big Bend of Florida here, these are hurricane warnings in effect, again, for areas in and around Perry and even down into portions again here of the center of the Big Bend. needing to watch out for those hurricane conditions as well. So, we do have those in effect, but even further up here towards the South Carolina coastline and inland, we're seeing tropical storm watches now for Charleston, Savannah, up near even North Charleston there, and back through southern Georgia. But to the north, flood watches from Columbia to Augusta, back near Macon, and even up into portions of the PD of South Carolina. And these will only expand further over the next day or so as that flooding threat begins to really push inland here and bring those flooding concerns again for areas that unfortunately are just not going to have a lot that they can do about it. So again, this is the latest track from the National Hurricane Center. This just dropped, and I'm going to refresh the page, overlaid with radar imagery. So again, a lot of rain being pumped into Florida here, but as of the latest advisory here, again, still a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, but we are still looking at the potential here for a stalling out storm. Now, still expecting a Category 1 storm upon landfall from the National Hurricane Center. Could be close to Category 2, but again, Category 1 is probably the most likely outcome here, as you can see here, again, near the Big Bend of Florida. But the bigger concern, I think, with this storm is going to be up into South Georgia and South Carolina, where we're going to see all of that flooding that I've been mentioning. But also, we will see some gusty winds and storm surge up here as well. Probably still a tropical storm here. And should the storm take a path a little bit further offshore and then maybe make a landfall further north, which is not out of the question, again, it's in the realm of possibilities, it's in the cone, then we could see more significant of a storm surge and wind risk for portions of northern South Carolina and southeast North Carolina. And again, we'll take a look at that with some models here. But this is the latest cone. Again, just illustrating that idea, kind of blobbing out over the southeast, indicating that stalling storm. So that's something that we're absolutely going to want to watch out for here. Now, the latest, again, storm surge threat from the National Hurricane Center, not much has changed here, but we have added some new areas, and I talked about that this morning. Now expecting 2 to 4 feet of storm surge from the South Santee River all the way down to the mouth of the St. Mary's River. So again, all of the Georgia coastline and kind of up towards Georgetown, getting towards the Strand there of South Carolina, we're going to, see some storm surge concerns. That on top of record-breaking flooding is likely. But again, we've got to get through Florida first here, and 6 to 10 feet of storm surge likely overnight tonight into tomorrow through the Big Bend from the Suwannee River northbound there into the Perry, Florida area until eventually we kind of get back towards the Panhandle and out of the Big Bend here. But we could even see flooding concerns into Tampa Bay. Again, we're already seeing that up towards Yankeetown, 5 to 8 feet of storm surge not out of the question here. So again, we're going to see saltwater flooding and freshwater flooding. So this is the saltwater flooding. We take a look at the freshwater flooding. We realize, this is no picnic either, with a high risk of excessive rainfall that will lead to flash flooding from Charleston, Savannah, even up towards Myrtle Beach, now just south of there, towards Murrells Inlet, Georgetown, up towards even other parts of the low country there, near Allendale, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, and even back towards other areas of coastal Georgia, Tybee Island, Beaufort, Hilton Head Island, a lot of areas here under this very high risk, but even that moderate risk, which is, also very noteworthy, going far enough inland to, encompass Tallahassee, Augusta, Florence, South Carolina, Wilmington, Fayetteville, a lot of communities here under the gun for flash flooding, and potentially even later on down the road, Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro, Statesville, North Carolina, and potentially up into the mid-Atlantic could see some flash flooding out of this storm system. So a lot of freshwater flooding concerns, just like the saltwater flooding concerns. All right, latest from our high-resolution rapid refresh model. This just ran as well. Here we go. Here's a storm, again, a strengthening one, already lashing the west coast of Florida with those strong straight-line winds. A couple tornado warnings have been issued today as well, including a couple that were radar confirmed. So we've seen tornadoes already today, which will also continue to be a threat with this storm system. And then again, that surge increasing as well overnight tonight. So here we go, and you'll even notice on the high-resolution rapid refresh, this just ran recently, and it's already missing out on a lot of the storm activity that's happening near this stalled frontal boundary. So the Debbie's already overperforming in the rainfall category here, even before it's made landfall. So the rainfall, no matter what, is going to be the biggest concern here. But either way, here we go. Strengthening storm up to about Category 1 strength with a landfall tomorrow morning, probably just after daybreak. maybe a couple hours after sunrise here into the Big Bend of Florida, right near Perry. And at this point, again, storm surge will be the worst into the Big Bend. Also, rainfall will begin to spread across southern Georgia, gusty winds as well, even up towards the Charleston area, seeing some of that beginning onshore flow here, again, on this side of Debby, seeing the rainfall pick up and seeing a tornado threat increase as well. Again, anywhere kind of to the right of the storm, specifically the right front quadrant, is going to have a tornado threat tomorrow upon landfall. So Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, Valdosta, even back down towards Tampa Bay could still be seeing some storm surge issues and some flooding concerns as some of these bands continue to rotate in, out of the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to be a real mess tomorrow upon landfall. And then the slow crawl begins across the Florida-Georgia state line here. And this is when rain is going to really begin to pick up for Charleston, Beaufort, Savannah, or again, really spreading through the area all day Monday afternoon. We'll see also some of these strong storms try to rotate in off the Atlantic, bringing storm surge and a tornado threat with that strong onshore push of wind. And again, even some leftover strong storms tomorrow into central Florida, even though the storm is kind of passed. Notice still these banding features feeding in off the Gulf of Mexico, going to bring those strong winds with them. And again, that tornado threat, including still some surge as well. So we get this into Tuesday morning, and you'll notice the storm hasn't really moved. And because of that, still continuing with this strong onshore flow into Charleston. I can just tell you right now, the video out of Charleston is going to be pretty unbelievable with this storm, between all the rain that is falling and all of this, again, pushing out of the Atlantic with that fresh water into Charleston Harbor. It's going to cause problems, and eventually even up towards the Myrtle Beach area. We're going to see that rain begin overnight to Monday into Tuesday, that onshore flow beginning to increase as well. Sea level, rise will begin, and again, that's why we already have that forecast for 2 to 4 feet of storm surge through all of the Georgia coastline and through at least the southern half of the South Carolina coastline, but that'll likely get extended north here. And then as far out as this model goes, Tuesday afternoon, still dealing with widespread heavy rain through coastal sections of South Carolina, expanding up northwards into the Midlands of South Carolina, the PD, potentially even Charlotte, Rock Hill, Chester County, South Carolina, the Sandhills of North Carolina, trying to get in on some of that action as well. And even again on the backside, still seeing some feisty storms rolling in off the Gulf into portions of Florida. So a real mess over the next 48 hours, and that's just the rainfall. The wind will also be a concern. Again, here's landfall tomorrow morning. Winds gusting up into hurricane strength. Again, a Category 1 storm. Winds could gust up to 85, maybe 90, 95 miles an hour at times there on the beaches, but eventually wind speeds will die down a tad as the storm moves inland during the afternoon, but still strong winds through all of South Georgia. This is going to bring power concerns here. Wind's going to be gusting 50, 60, maybe even 65 miles an hour, pretty far inland here, much like Idalia brought a year ago, although a tad weaker with this storm, but same general idea here. We're going to have trees downed. We're going to have power lines down as this spreads across North Florida and into South Georgia. Now, eventually, we'll see those same wind speeds of kind of spread up towards the low country of South Carolina. This is Tuesday morning. Again, this is why we're concerned about some storm surge. We've got winds coming in off the Atlantic near 60, 65 mile an hour gusts here, pushing that water towards Charleston and Savannah, Georgetown, again, even surrounding areas here of coastal South Carolina. We're going to want to watch for that. And this is on top of the freshwater flooding that is falling as well. So unfortunately, kind of a worst case scenario here for Charleston in terms of water from both the sky and the ocean really at the same time here. So just an unfortunate scenario though there for you folks. Now let's take a look at some more model data, some global models here. The European model from this afternoon I think is handling the storm pretty well, and we'll pick up where we left off. This is Tuesday morning into Tuesday afternoon. Again, a storm somewhere near Savannah or Charleston, give or take 50 or 100 miles. But the impacts remain the same. Rainfall spreading inland, storm surge spreading inland, and some gusty winds as well. Now, the European and many other models get this back into the Atlantic sometime overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. And at this point, things could get better through South Georgia and South Carolina if a track like this happens. Unfortunately, though, things would begin to deteriorate further up the coast. Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Murrells Inlet, up towards, again, the Wilmington area, storm surge would increase, winds would pick up, the storm would strengthen, and then make another landfall somewhere in northeast South Carolina or southeast North Carolina sometime Thursday morning here, and then that rain would spread inland with it. Again, ongoing flooding would be a concern, still some storm surge, gusty winds, power outages, and again, you notice that's a Thursday morning landfall. This is all the way into Friday afternoon, just now crawling up past Fayetteville and into Raleigh, and then eventually up through the Northeast. And we'll discuss the Northeast as well here in just a second. But I'll also show the GFS a less likely scenario, but still possible. GFS says, well, the storm's going to stall a little bit longer here through Charleston and Savannah. This then just kind of fizzle out over Georgia and Alabama into the weekend. So that is a possibility, but I think it's a less likely possibility than the European. Personally, and again, if you look at the NHC cone, I think a track kind of like this is going to be the most likely currently if I were to kind of draw the most likely track. So I think the European's handling it a little bit better here. And because of that, I'm going to show you European wind gusts here throughout the next couple of days. So this is Tuesday into Wednesday. Here we go, Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. Winds, and these are max wind gusts, I should add. So not sustained, but max wind gusts. Wednesday afternoon, again, gusting up into tropical depression strength here. Isolated spots getting to tropical storm strength through much of South Carolina, south of the I-20 corridor here. But you'll notice that storm strengthening along the beaches and eventually making landfall Thursday morning or afternoon with strong tropical storm conditions, into portions of eastern South Carolina and eastern North Carolina. And those spread inland Thursday evening into Friday. Again, would bring some power outages, some gusty winds, but still rainfall would be the biggest threat. And here we go. Latest rainfall predictions. Again, we could see, I think somebody is going to see at least 2 feet of rain between Savannah, Statesboro, Augusta, Charleston, kind of in this triangle right in here. I think someone in there is going to see 2 feet of rain. Now, not everyone is going to see that much rain. Obviously, some spots are going to see more than others, but widespread, a foot to 16 inches, I think, is going to be very likely into this section of southern South Carolina and coastal Georgia. Again, a lot of rain on the way. Even inland and further up the coast, Myrtle Beach, 8 to 12 inches, maybe more than a foot. Florence, probably same story. Columbia could see 5 to 8 inches of rain. And then eventually we bring this up to North Carolina and Virginia. Plenty of rain here as well. Raleigh, Greenville, Jacksonville, Fayetteville, North Carolina, probably half a foot to a foot of rain. Not out of the question. Isolated spots would see more, isolated spots would see less, but general ballpark there. Even Charlotte to Greensboro, depending on track, could get a good 3 to 5 inches of rain. And then lesser totals back towards the mountains and the foothills with likely more of 1 to 3 inches of rain, maybe even less than that, depending on, again, how the track goes. So that's the latest rainfall predictions here. What about the Northeast? Again, this is a storm that's going to try to kind of sneak up that direction. And if we take a look at the latest European ensemble mean, it's very likely it does. And here we go. This is getting into the middle of this week. Here's our storm. But you'll notice at the same time, we've got a trough dipping down out of Canada trying to pick up Debby, and very likely will do so and kind of pull it up through the mid-Atlantic. And then, unfortunately, I know kind of the model's still loading here, so it's not going to go all the way there. But again, would eventually then ride up through the mid-Atlantic and through the Northeast, and we would see some impacts. Now, the main impact here would once again be rain, just like in the Southeast. Here we go. This is the latest European for this weekend, Friday into Saturday. Again, a pretty feisty low pressure system here. It would bring some gusty winds, definitely. Would also probably bring some flooding concerns into the Delmarva, and even potentially some coastal areas of Delaware, New Jersey, and Long Island. But again, rainfall would be the biggest concern, as a heavy band of rain would likely swing through portions of coastal New England and the Northeast going into this weekend before eventually getting on out of here for early next week. So again, rainfall threat here as well. Should we get a track right up the coastline, we could see a good half a foot of rain through many of these cities in the I-95 corridor. Now, this forecast is less, we're less confident in it, but it is a potential here. So go ahead and just prepare for that possibility of flooding rains in the Northeast as well. Now, again, that's not all. We have another area to watch here in the Caribbean as Debby is continuing to impact the Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic. Next week, we're going to be watching another wave here. Notice here this pocket of moisture showing up right in the heart of the Caribbean. This is another tropical wave that has moved off of Africa. Again, the one that NHC is watching here. So again, a pocket of moisture here in that area through the middle of this coming week. This is Thursday afternoon. At the same time frame, you'll notice wind shear relatively low here into the Western Caribbean. Wind shear around in places, but all things considered, a pretty favorable environment for development here, and something that could lead to a strengthening wave into a depression or a storm. And guess what? Our models agree here. Latest European ensembles here do show a storm developing. Not all of the members, but a lot of them here, again, develop this low pressure here over the next couple of days. Here it goes, and then eventually tracks through the Southern Caribbean, and then finally tries to hook it north here by the time we get towards the middle and latter part of this coming week, and then try to get it into the Gulf. And from that point on, we would have a lot more questions and answers, to say the least here. But do know that that is a possibility in the long run. So obviously, Debbie's the main threat right now. We're going to continue to track her. But after that, things could stay active. And again, that's been the forecast for a while now. Pretty active August here in the tropics. So again, I appreciate y'all tuning in. If you haven't already subscribed, like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from and kind of how you're preparing for the storm. Or if you're being impacted, let me know what impacts you're seeing out there. With that said, have a great rest and a safe night. And I'll see you all tomorrow.